in researching my contemporary artist, I was able to find a lot of art that I was able to deconstruct and make my own theories on, but I found it harder to find information about the artist's thought process and the process of creating their work and their thoughts behind their artwork. So I reached out to him and interviewed him and got to hear his own thoughts and how he perceives his work and its creation. And this is that.
Do you consider yourself a contemporary artist?
I suppose so. Yeah, sure. I'm a contemporary artist. I'm gonna get that
Yeah.
tattooed on my chest.
Good. Yeah. I guess how would you define contemporary art? Because I feel like your art might not be the standard, but do you view yourself as do you view it as contemporary art?
I don't imagine it, not that it couldn't ever be, but when I think of the stuff I make, I don't imagine it in a big white room with security guards and roped off velvet things. I see it as a more modern thing that's more suited for our phone screens, and that's kind of intentional in a way. Leonardo da Vinci pieces wouldn't do as well on Instagram as something like mine for whatever
not
reason
as well
that
as
we're
your
scrolling
posts.
so quickly. So yeah, I guess I am a contemporary, modern, local, present day art boy.
Digital contemporary, if you will.
And it always starts with the idea, and then pencil on just sketch paper, then micron ink pen. Do I have one nearby? Nope, it's gone. But then I scan it with my phone. I don't even use a scanner thing anymore. I used to, and now I'm like, I can just take a photo of it. The camera on this is pretty good. And I scan that in, and then I color it in Photoshop, because then you can play with it more, and you can have mistakes. If you're coloring by hand, a mistake takes a long time to cover up. But this way, I'm like, what would it look like with the sky purple? Okay, what about yellow? What if no color? What if half color? And then it's pretty fun to be a digital god instead of a little lonely. Because
awesome.
I do murals sometimes, or just recently I've done a couple, and it reminded me how much I love digital, because in real life, I have to actually pick up the bucket and put the brush in it and wait for it to dry, and I don't have the magic. I'm like, oh right, I take it for granted. I'm gonna stop taking the magic digital world for granted.
Yes, that's so interesting. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Born in the mid 80s, grew up in the 90s. I think it's very 90s in that it's not saturated that much, because there wasn't as many. There was those colors back then, but every decade kind of has its own general theme. Yeah, the 80s is more neon. The 70s was like that orange, yellow, brown sort of motif. 60s was kind of more psychedelic. The 90s, it's, I don't know, a lot of Saturday morning cartoons, cereal boxes, that kind of thing. That's what I see it in that family of stuff for the most part. So it's probably a product of my natural taste, plus when I grew up and the cartoons I was watching. I think it's very much inspired by that.
I love that. I can totally see that.
I think I cover death, anxiety, depression, ascension, repetition, and wonder could be another one on there. Humor, some of it is just a guy with 2 feet in the toilet bowl or something. And then that's not really about mental health or anything. Or is it? It is kind of about mental health. I don't really set out to be like, oh, I'm going to make a mental health infographic. It's more what message I need to tell myself that day, because we're all dealing with the human condition and have various levels of neuroticism and anxiety, and what am I doing here? Times are so strange. Am I doing the right thing? How come I can never do the thing I told myself to do? I promised I'd do it tomorrow, and I can't bring myself to do it. Those little struggles that we don't really advertise, I need to remind myself of them, and then in sharing it kind of is cathartic, because this 1,000 people or 10,000 people, or even sometimes if 50 people resonate with it, it's like, oh, I'm not alone. This is the collective is all tapped into this vibe today. It's like, all right, as long as it's not just me, we're
absolutely better. Love that. Oh my gosh.
Motivation to share it's like half the catharsis and feeling other people resonate with it, and some of it is financial as well, because
Mhm.
if you don't share stuff and offer it in a way that people can buy it somehow, whether they want a book or a shirt or a print or whatever other thing,
Yeah.
that then so yes, a lot of the sharing of it is that too, because like, oh, if I don't have that, I'll have to go get a real job, and that's the number one thing I
Capitalistic
don't want.
drive. Yeah.
Mhm.
How do other people explain the meanings behind your art? I can't really find any sources that are critiquing you. What critics do you see? How do they like, do they normally see the meaning behind your art that you intend it to have, or do some people view it
Sometimes
completely
even
in their own
more.
way?
And I get everything from you. Sometimes it's just I mean, on the each end of the spectrum of, for lack of a better word, the trolls. Like some people will just have like lame, gay, communist space utopia thing. So that's like one end of the spectrum. Another end of the spectrum is like, oh, this is offensive to neurodivergent people. How can you say that you can change your mindset? And it's like, I wasn't talking to neurodivergent people about that, but it's just it depends where people are at on that day. I
Okay.
think it's a mirror of what they
Yeah.
see, but most people get it for the most part. Sometimes people read into it more than I at least consciously knew. They'd be like, oh, see, the moon represents this, and they used the color red because that thing. And I was like, oh, I just picked those randomly, but
Yeah.
they built out a meaning for it, which those are fun to see in the comments, like long discussions about the piece in the
Yeah.
comments. But yeah, there's not a lot of I'm not in Rolling Stone or anything, or I don't even know what art critic magazines there would be.
What role does identity play in your art? That can be how your own identity pertains to your art or otherwise. How does your art
I think
cover identity?
I think most of the time I'm referring to identity as this kind of ethereal, shifting thing more than it is a solid thing, which sometimes it can feel solid, maybe for a day or a year. But most of the time when I'm referencing identity, it's the multiplicity of identities we all have. And some of us have tapped into it more and can share it more, but others kind of, or sometimes you suppress it because of whatever conditioning we have. Like, no, I'm a man, I have to be this strong thing, I can't be this kind of
My
flowery
favorite.
emotional thing. Yeah, to the outside it's like, no, you look like you did yesterday, but inside it's like, oh, this is what I felt nothing like this yesterday. I have
Yeah.
no connection to how I felt yesterday. It's a completely different animal, but to the outside, like, hey, I'm still Rick.
How does memory play a role in your art?
I think I cover the lack of memory more than I cover the forgetting. And memory relates to time, and time is this thing that's always slipping away from us. And we
Yes.
oftentimes wish that we were either in this hypothetical perfect future, or we're longing for this time we remember, like, oh, I was happy when I was 12, or back in early college. That's when I was at my most vibe, and now I'm in this dark dystopia. But really that always is transient, and it's good to remember that it's just always changing, and your memory is never an actual thing. It's just a movie in your head, or a feeling
Yeah.
that's
And
not
how you
in
perceive the
front
past.
of you right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that goes right into my next question. How is time conveyed or illustrated in your art?
Ooh, all over the place, as
Yeah.
a wacky, strange thing that we can't seem to get a hold of yet. To quote Terence McKenna, it's on the back of time that we ride into this world, and it's grasping for more of it that we sink into the blackness of death itself. And we have no theory of time. We have, we use it to calculate, physics equations and stuff, but we don't really know what is this forward flowing casuistry of this conveyor belt that we can't slow down
It's
at
a
all. What
construct.
is that? Yeah, it is.
It's the
It
construct.
definitely is. And time is change in a way, because with without let's see, how do I word this right? We wouldn't really notice time if it wasn't for change. Like, time basically just is change. Like, we think of, well, look how different the 90s were, look how different the 70s were, look how different 100 years ago was. But it's really, that's the thing that marks the time, not that the earth is in a different spot in the cosmos, but rather like the evolutions and de-evolutions that have transpired.
Movement.
So yeah, time kind of is change, and it's also the fourth dimension, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. How is place or location shown in your art? I guess it's like your own little universe, I think. Like,
Yeah, it's I use a lot of landscapes. I mean, I draw trees and mountains and
mhm,
space and stuff, and I use it to kind of contrast. Oftentimes the thing that represents the negative plane of existence, the low
mhm,
vibe plane, is awesome, often
yeah,
gray and dead trees and stuff like that. And then in the ideal plane, you've got the crystals, the colors, the trees are alive, the stars are
galaxy, yeah.
out. Yeah, galaxies are there. So that's one way of representing places, but really it's the metaphor of the place more than the this is Paris. Although
Yeah.
maybe I've drawn Paris before, but probably not. I'm not
I haven't seen it.
I'm not often drawing yeah,
Paris, the Eiffel
accurate
Tower.
landscapes that often.
How does language slash like the words, like the text you use in your art, efficiently share the ideas you're trying to convey?
So it all comes down to if it works on me, then okay, hopefully it works on others. I would never put something out that doesn't work on me and then I hope you guys like it. But
Hope you can
if it works
understand that.
on me, then yeah. So how would I speak to myself? That's how I kind of word it. How do I phrase it to myself in a way that it sticks, and then hopefully it sticks to those that could use it on that day.
Do you see any ways that science has affected your work, or like more specifically, like how has quarantine slash the pandemic affected your work,
Ooh,
if at all?
quarantine really put us face first in the present moment, whereas we have to kind of force ourselves to find the present moment. And when the ground from under you kind of falls, there's no choice but to see the present moment. And my friend was reading some book. This is such a like third party story now because I don't
It's
even
okay.
remember the title of the book,
It's
but
okay.
he was going through a difficult breakup, and he read some book about how when you're in chaos and you feel like everything is just in flux, because he like doesn't have the same partner anymore, the same place is gone, the cat's gone, like the whole set and setting has changed. And he read that that's actually what reality is. And whenever the ground is solid, that's the illusion, but the truth is the flux of change. So whenever you're witnessing that, take note and take it in, because that's truth, and you will find the solid ground again. You will find that illusion again, but that's not the truth of it. So just remember, like, no, this is cool, this is how it is, this isn't badness, this is how it is, but I'll find the illusion of consistency again at some point. And I think that's what the pandemic did, is that it shook the floor of like,
Mhm.
oh, it's not just always you can fly everywhere and see friends always and not wear masks always and not have to worry about it. It's yeah, the world is wild like that. So we got a little taste of it.
That is
And our
definitely
generation,
translated into your recent work. Like that message exactly has like been shown in your recent works. This is gonna be a big question specifically for you, but
lay it on me.
how would you describe the spirituality in your art? You
I
cover a
think it's
lot, but I don't know if you can define
yeah,
it.
I think the spiritual side of things is actually what holds up the stubborn physical side of things. And if you look at Donald Hoffman's work, or Roger Penrose, or I mean, who else? Some of the less serious people. What are their names? Doesn't matter. John Wheeler, Feynman with the single electron
Yeah.
theory thing. It's showing that the consciousness is the fundamental thing, and then we project space-time onto it. We project physicality onto that, and it really does make more sense that way, because how could there just be physical stuff like from nothing? Like where would it get it from? Where would it do that? But if the whole thing's an imagination and it's
Mhm.
a dream and you can compute that kind of makes a little more sense. But other than that, it's and it's going that way. They're kind of coming to that conclusion the same way
Yeah.
they thought the world was made of earth, air, fire, and water, and then they realized, oh, okay, no, it's made of the periodic table of elements. And then it's like, okay, well, it's not made of those, it's made of atoms and electrons. Oh, okay, it's not made of those, it's made of quarks and gluons and Planck space. And well, okay. And then eventually you keep dividing to where it's like, well, can you just divide forever and you're just naming stuff. There's
Exactly.
no end to the division. Yeah, it's all a made up energy play. It's just a play of energy and sound. And yeah, it's us. We're the beings. We're the God experiencing
The mind, the
limitations.
universe
That's yeah,
experiencing itself. Is
because
there
it's the
even
one
a
thing it doesn't have.
yeah? Is there even a
Yeah.
word to like define or like generalize that belief? Is like this isn't living not in the physical? I don't know. It's a hard topic to like,
Ethereal.
I guess. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can never pin it down because if you pin
No,
it
you
down,
can't.
it'll get co-opted by people and they'll make it seem a little icky. Like people
Yep.
don't like the word spiritual, they don't like the word God, the word love, the word all these kind of end up having a weird connotation. And
Yeah.
you can rebrand it, but then it catches up with it, and that's kind of built into the system in a way because
Yeah.
otherwise the game would be over. So it's like this infinite game of you can't quite pin it down. It's this infinite mystery that cannot be labeled. As soon as you talk about it, it's already like moved over to the next room. Like, oh, I
Exactly.
almost got it. I
Literally.
almost nailed it down.
You
It's gone
never
again.
can. That's all the questions I have. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah. What do you want to be?
I want to be an artist, like an art historian. I want to like curate museums, but also I've been
That's cool.
realizing recently, like kind of how fucked the museum industry is. So at the same time, I want to like break the system because it's messed up and like unethical, but at the same time, capitalism. So I'm still figuring it out. I'm just going into my sophomore year. I'm still a little baby artist. I'll get up there one day.
So do you are you an artist yourself? You want to, in
Not a
addition to
good
make
one.
art,
No, I'm
but
more into like the like analyzing art and like learning about it and like history art is my shit. French Revolution, my fave. Yeah. I don't know.
ooh,
I don't know.
that's very cool. And that's I don't know, that sounds like such a fun job, and to be able to just take it all in and see patterns and see when something
I
was never like that
absolutely
again.
love it. I love it. It's so interesting how art just like repeats itself too. And like you might not feel like your art relates at all to like what they were talking about in the 1600s, but some of the messages are the exact same, which is
It's
crazy.
gotta be.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's gotta be a looping thing. Yeah.
it is.
So you say it's fucked in what way? Like that I mean there's
Oh my
probably
God.
many ways, but if you
Well,
were to
okay.
condense it.
Okay. Well, let me just like shock you really quickly. Pablo Picasso beat up all of his girlfriends, had them like kidnapped and like a lot of them committed suicide. Like Pablo Picasso is this romanticized figure in the art world. He's a shitty ass guy, and he's stolen like all of the best museums ever. I really recommend that you look up the Guerrilla Girls. They like do a lot of political stuff and like just go to their website. It's really cool. They have
Guerrilla
like
warfare or guerrilla
Guerrilla
in the
Girls.
but like it's spelled like a gorilla or gorilla.
That's a good question. I think it's G-U.
I'm guessing it's you. Okay,
Yeah, it's you.
cool.
Yeah,
No,
they're
that
good
hasn't
people.
crossed my. I did know Picasso was an asshole.
Yeah,
I learned that from it was like some David Bowie song kind of references a little
really?
bit.
David
Yeah.
Bowie was aware
Or
of
am I?
this?
Oh yeah. I mean, we saw it a lot in the last 10 years with I don't know Cosby and a
Mhm.
hundred other people, but it's just not surprising, especially if you go back in time. Or like, did you know they were a big piece of shit? Like, makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So like that's kind of my issue that I'm facing because like I'm an historian and I'm looking back at all these people, but like a lot of these people aren't good people. So can I even support them?
But you do believe in separating the if what they made still exists on its own is like a beautiful piece. That's still it still is a beautiful piece. We would love to have had it be tied to someone less I don't know, with less darkness in them
Yeah,
who chose the lighter path. But
that's the hardest question. And like at the end of the day, there is no answer because if you're supporting the like, can you really support the art if like you know the person behind it? I don't know. I wrote about that a little bit somewhere. I don't think I can find it, but like that is the hardest question and something I'm still kind of trying to decide on my own, I think. But
yeah, Because I mean, the like founding fathers, not the best guys, but you know, some good ideas, but also not a single one can you look at and not see like, ooh, even for their time, they weren't
Exactly. And
that good. But then you have to look at, I mean, what
what is
created
good,
those?
what is
Like maybe
bad.
like
Oh,
they
what do you
were, you know, raised however they were raised
think?
and have whatever trauma response that they're just kind of acting into that trauma response. So, I
Exactly.
mean, yeah, it's tough to say. And I know that that line of reasoning is just like, well, then everyone is can't help any action they doing,
But
but
it's
still.
still logical. Like that line of thinking is still logical because like obviously someone's not, I don't like to think that people are inherently bad, but then like like, it's so hard. It's so hard. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
you have to be a completely evolved being of light to really just take anything and just say like, well, no, they're just on their journey.
Exactly.
But as humans now, it's like, no, this guy's an asshole.
Yeah. 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 It's impossible sometimes.
One more question.
Oh, one more question from
One
me.
more question for you. So like, would you want to have your own, if money wasn't the issue or something, would you want to just have your own museum where you
Oh yeah.
curate the
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We'd have a whole Ramin section with like things hanging from the ceiling, like fun lights and all your pieces. And we'd have like a whole like political section, like being like, look at all of these artists that you thought were awesome. They're not as awesome as Ramin. There'd be a lot. It'd be like way more
until my
educational.
scandal in 2030?
No! Like it'd be like curated like how museums should be curated, not like for the perceived public eye and for like big donators and people like that. If that makes sense.
Ooh, that's what's influencing it.
Because the
Okay.
funding, a lot of museum curators like know about this, but they can't like do anything about it because they don't want to piss off their like funders and the people that donate.
They're
Because the
stuck.
people that fund them are bad people.
That's how they
So
got the money.
that's how they got the money. Yeah, by being bad people. Hopefully, yeah. One day, one day, someone's gonna be like, "Here you go, Greta. Here's $1 billion. Open your museum."
Yes.
Awesome.
Hopefully a
Cool.
billion, because a million will be worth like $10. But
Exactly. Like, it's not so scary right now. It's terrifying, but it's also always like interest has always, or not, is it interest? Yeah, it's always been a thing. It's not
yeah,
interest. Inflation.
inflation. Yeah, interest is also not fun, but yeah, inflation on the interest. Ooh,
The
also not
worst.
fun. Yeah.
The absolute worst. Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you so much.
Of course, I had a great time.
Maybe if I have more contemporary projects in the future, you'll hear questions from me again.
Yeah, thanks for choosing me.
Thank you for being you.
I'll try to keep doing it.
You're doing good so far. You've made it this far. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Bye.